Hello everyone, welcome. My name is Austin Kwasinski and today we're here with Live Sunday Family Arts. We're going to be talking about pointillism today. So here I have my demonstration piece. I'm just going to zoom in, and now what pointillism is all about is making tiny marks and dashes and going together, and the colors start to actually harmonize with one another and they start to form a cohesive color. So it's taking say your reds and your yellows, and when they're put really close together, they're going to start to kind of form that orangey tone, and when we kind of look back from it, that's what we perceive in our eyes. So this is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to talk about some of the artist inspirations by this, and we're going to kind of dive into a little bit of color theory and talk about what's happening with that. We should go over some of the materials that we're going to be needing for this project. So let's go over those now. So I'm going to have a little bit of water here. This is just because I'm going to be mixing a lot of different colors in paint off to the side. So I'm going to use water to kind of clean out my brush. We're going to use acrylic paint. So I got collection over here on the side here of different colors of acrylic paint are going to do. It doesn't need to be anything super expensive. That will do. Paintbrushes. We're going to use different kinds of paintbrushes to actually mix our paints together to make some different colors. Multimedia paper. This one is 11 by 14 and I just cut it in half, and it's a little small size. If you want to work larger, you totally can. It's up to you. So Qtips. This is going to be the bread and butter of what we're going to be doing today. We're only going to be making our marks using these Qtips, so no brushes are required. For smaller children that don't want to use paint, they can also use a pen or a marker and to kind of poke dots that way. That's a little bit less messy as well, so that option is there for you also. Here we're going to use a pencil and stuff, pencil and eraser. I have my kneaded eraser here. This is because we're going to start to make a quick sketch of what we're going to be painting and then go from there. Also, any still life of fruit, you can have real fruit in front of you, or if it's easier to take a photo and go from that way, you can do that as well. Alright, so let's talk about pointillism a little bit. So one of the artists that I want to talk about is Georges Seurat. And this is a very famous painting. It's a Sunday à la grande jet. And Georges Seurat was very famous for his impressionism, but also using tiny marks in his paintings. As you can see on camera, you can start to see a little bit of the marks kind of going from here, but when we look at stuff like, say, this coat on here, or even this dress, it looks like a very solid color. You know, we see that as a solid orange, we see that as a solid pink, but when we actually start to go deeper and look into it, you can see all these. This is a close-up of that painting. You can see all these different colors that are at play here. So we have our yellows here, we have light green, there's even some blues in there. And what's happening is that the colors are starting to have a conversation and communicate with one another. So this is a apparent thing when it comes to color harmony. If you have colors that are very saturated, so like really strong reds and really strong oranges and yellows and all that stuff, they're going to kind of fight for competition as far as who gets noticed first. But when you have colors that are a little bit muted, a little bit less saturated, so kind of your more neutral colors, in kind of the gray area, they're going to start to form a little bit more of a conversation, and your colors are going to start to mesh together. So when they're super strong, like this example here, a lot of times they're going to be fighting for that attention, but when they started to be a little bit more neutral in that way, they're going to start to blend together. So this is a common thing, as you can see, where it's going to be a bunch of tiny little marks, and then when you look back, it's going to appear like it's a solid color. Alrighty guys, so let's get started with the actual demo here. So I'm going to grab my pencil at first and then also my eraser, and now I have a still life in front of me that I'm going to base it off of. It's the same one that I used before. So what I'm going to do when I'm going to start to make the marks is I'm going to kind of rotate, because I see this big apple here, so I'm going to kind of rotate and where I want that apple to kind of place. I'm just going to kind of go like this. It doesn't have to be perfect, it can be a little bit rough. Also, I'll put this one here too so you guys can see this example as we go on here. So let's make this rough apple here. And again, we're going to be painting over this, so it can be messy. It doesn't have to be anything super elaborate. Something like that would be good. Then we're going to have that banana, which is behind. Kind of coming out like so. I'm going to make sure we put an indent here for the apple as well. And then it has a little stem. Hopefully you can see that on camera. We'll be painting it anyway, so it's going to become a little bit more clear. Then we have that orange that's coming behind it. What's happening is my orange is becoming a little bit larger, so what I'm going to do is going to start to make that, I'm going to make that apple a bit larger here. Let's come down a bit. That's the beauty thing about painting, and when we're doing our sketch, we can be super messy and we don't even have to worry about what lines were being put down here. So I'm even going to go lower like so. There you go. I'm starting to get that apple shape that I'm wanting here. And the banana that's coming up here is going to be kind of come up like so. A nice rounded edge here. Start to taper at the very bottom here. A little bit of a stem. Can't forget that part there too. Alrighty, so we're just starting to get that shapes in there, blocking out what we're going to be drawing. In my still life reference, there's a bit of shadows that are happening from the apples, so let's do those now. So we'll do kind of comes like that one. The second one here for the orange. The banana's leaving a little bit one too, so we'll put that on the bottom as well. Block that in. There you go. And then we'll do the ground plane here as well. We can actually make it a little bit higher if we want to, but I think that should be it. We're starting to get the, I'm going to get a little bit more round in that banana shape here. There you go. We'll erase out of that so it doesn't get as confusing for us when we're starting to apply our marks here. The stem is going to come a little bit down like so. The orange also has a little bit of stem at the top as well. Alright, so let's make, I might make my banana a little bit larger actually. Come down that way. Let's make sure that's nice and round. Okay, perfect. So we kind of got our basic sketch in and marked in. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add some colors. So for doing this, we're going to use one Q-tip per color. So Q-tip is going to be on both sides. So we're going to try to stick with one color. Sometimes we might get a little bit messy and mix it up a bit. So let's start to add the colors to our canvas here. So we got those reds for the apple. Let's add that in there. That should be good. Make sure I don't tie it too tight because we are going to continue to keep using this. Use yellow. There we go. And we need the blues for the shadows. As a stylistic choice, you don't have to do blue for shadows, but when we're going to talk about warm and cool later, it's really good to have a mix of both. What other colors do we need? Do green for the background there. We'll just get a huge mix of colors. We'll start to add some browns later on, so we'll put that on our palette. This is really good so far because we don't have to mix, but for the things like orange, we will probably have to mix because I don't have an orange with me right now. All right, and this one, a little bit of a lighter brown. There we go. All right, so let's put this off to the side. Oh, and we need some white and black too. So white and black is going to be good for when we actually start to mix our colors. Hello, Donna. Good to see you. So got that white. Let's add some black as well. So this is going to be good for when we actually want to make, say, our colors lighter or darker. Not much coming out of this black. Let's take a look here. All right, let's try now maybe. There we go. Perfect. All right. So let's get started, shall we? So let's take some of the Q-tips. We're going to have a lot of Q-tips, so find a safe space to kind of put them aside. I have a little bit of a rag over here on my left, so I'm going to have them over there, so when we're not using them, we have a place to put them that's going to be out of the way and ready to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to dab, and I'm going to use my base colors first. So the reason behind this is I'm just going to try to cover as much of that core color as possible, and I'm going to start to layer colors over top of it. So we're just going to do a base coat of the basic colors, and then we're going to go from there. So I'm just starting to add little dots like so. And I'm going to leave room for different colors as well. So I just want to get the base of what I'm doing here. Let's see. And again, I'm just focusing on doing the reds right now and using that one side. And so if I want to start to add, say it like a color like yellow, I'm going to flip it over on the other side. And then I can start to add yellow like that. Right? And I'm mixing the yellows in between with the reds as well, especially on this one side, because in my reference it's a lot lighter, so it's starting to get that light, and then this is where the shadows are, so I'm going to put lighter tones here and then darker tones as well. Another thing that's great about color to keep in mind is the balance of your warms and cools. Oftentimes when we're doing our paintings, we don't want to have so much of one color. And sometimes when you look at a painting and you've been doing it for a long time and you start to see it and it's like, well, what is it missing? Sometimes adding that warm versus cool separation can really start to give your painting a lot of life, especially when you weren't even expecting something like that, right? So on this side here, I'm going to put that Q-tip aside. I'm going to grab another one. I'm going to add a little bit of blues here too, because this is going to be that shadow side. So let's start to add a little bit of blues mixing with those reds here. So a lot of the unexpected times when we add warms and cools is often in skin tones as well. Sometimes you'll be painting skin of the face of somebody, and oftentimes we have blood that's rushing through. So for example, in the ears and cheeks, they're going to be a lot warmer as far as, and I'm going to go over with that red again. I'm going to kind of mix that there. Oh, I put a little blue dot there, but that's okay. And then sometimes, even if you're doing, say, for a face example, if you start to add a little bit of blue tones in certain spaces, especially for the shadows, you really it starts to look more lifelike instead of just one base color, like one warm color. Usually people will refer to skin colors as kind of like a peachy, especially in a white Caucasian skin tone. There you go. So what I'm doing is I'm just layering all these dots, and we're starting to really get a sense of the shape that's happening with this apple. So I'm going to put, in my reference here, I have a little bit of yellow here. So this is really good to keep in mind in the sense of when we're going to separate our colors. So I'm going to actually do that now. So let's grab this brown color that we got here. And so when I'm going to separate that line of the curve of the apple, so I'm going to start to do the stem here. Looks like I only didn't quite get the whole Q-tip. That's okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to add kind of that line there, but I'm going to quickly go over it with my red and sort of blend those two colors together because it's still wet. So it's not as strong. We should get some more colors in there as well, because even though we refer to an apple as just red, what's really great about it is we're going to mix multiple colors in there because they're going to still have the conversation that I talked about before. So we're going to add some greens up top here as well, and then I'm going to mix it in with some yellows. So it's not always strong. Now we're starting to get a light green there. There's a little bit of, I think, brown in there as well. I kind of like that tone that we're getting, so I'm going to mix it throughout as well. We're really starting to get that edge. We can go over it with red again too. So what we're doing by doing it this way, we're actually mixing colors on the fly using our Q-tips. And now when I start to look back, looking back at the screen here, I can start to see I'm going to mix a little bit of red in there too, so it's not just green. I'm really starting to get the shape of the apple that I'm going for, and it's really evident in starting to mix those colors in. Let's see, let's add some more blues as well. So I'm going to keep my red handy because I want to. We can almost do it double here. Let's see. Because a lot of this is that blue, but again, I don't want that blue to be so strong because it's taking up a lot of visual space. So I'm going to dial it back with that red. I'm going to go over top while it's still wet. There we go. Now we're really starting to get that shape. So a good reason why we chose to do fruit today for this is because you have a lot of symmetrical spheres that's going on here. And so we're showing the light side of that sphere and then also that dark side of the sphere. So it's a really good exercise. There we go. We're going to keep adding more and more. Like so. I think I'm going to add more yellow throughout this just so we get more pop in some of the opposite spaces there. There we go. And then again, I can go back over it with, I think another good thing to keep in mind is that our fruit right now are kind of floating, especially this apple. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to add the blues and make sure that it's sitting on that ground plane there. And the shadow's going to come something like that. And again, I can mix that with that red here, so it's not as strong. And now you can get a really sense that this apple is sitting on something that's grounded. And there you go. So that's a good start to the apple. I think we should start to work on some of the other fruit now. I don't have any orange on me on hand, so we're going to have to mix that color. So let's start with the banana at first. Same thing. I'm just going to use this yellow as a base coat. As you can see, there's already starting to be some red from prior mixing, but that's okay, because we're going to be working in layers anyways. And I kind of like a little bit of red at the top as well. So let's start to just get that colored in there. This is just covering our bases. Now again, same thing with the banana. It's going to be sitting on that ground plane. So let's make sure that we're getting that blue in there at the very bottom. And again, we can mix it with the yellow. And when we're mixing it with that yellow, we're going to start to get a little bit of a green. And that's what we want for the shadow part of our banana. Just starting to blend that green. Same thing with the top. There we go. Let's add a little bit more. So that blue is really strong on that banana, so I'm going to dial that back a bit. With the yellow. And again, if you're not happy with the way it's starting out, again, just let it dry, because I'm working with kind of wet paint here. Just let it dry and we can go from there. So an important thing to note when we're doing this, I'm just looking on the camera here, is that this area here, it's starting to kind of blend and mix together, because there isn't a strong contrast between the two shapes and colors that we're using. So in order to do this, I'm going to take that red. You can kind of see it in the example up top. I'm going to take that red and I'm going to go over top of it again to separate those lines, to make sure that we're starting to see. And again, we can add more yellow into it too, but I'm going to make sure that the edge right here, this is kind of all about edge control, is going to be a strong red color, because that's going to separate the two yellows there so they don't look like they're mixing together. Something like that. a little bit messy here, so we'll go over again with a little bit more red. There you go. So as long as we got that separation in there, again, we can kind of fiddle and play around with it to a way that we like it, because I kind of like a little bit more yellow in there. There you go. All right, so let's go back to our banana. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add, I think, some browns in there. I'm going to grab a new Q-tip because I don't think I actually have any browns yet. So let's do that. So let's add, this one's just like kind of a light one. We're going to go over with the dark one in a sec here. I also got this nice green here, so let's kind of go over that a bit. Think towards more of the bottom here where the stem kind of comes in. And again, I can go switch out the yellow. It's really kind of nice working this way with the Q-tips for the reason of that I'm not having to wash out my paintbrush each time I want to change a color. I can just kind of go back into it with, it's like I already have my palette kind of made out on my brushes, which is kind of nice actually. Okay, so I'm going to grab another one. I thought I did have a brown, but I lost it. So let's go over it with the brown again. So I'm going to go over a little bit darker here. Like so. And then I think I'm going to go over top of it with my yellow again. Let's see what happens. There you go. So you're already getting a sense that that stem is, so looking even on the monitor here, that stem is like one base color, but seeing it in person here, you can start to pick up on those yellows that are showing through. This Q-tip might need to be retired and we might have to switch it out a bit. It's getting a little stringy. There you go. But you're really starting to get kind of a layered effect with the colors because they're starting to show in and out in between. All right, so we got a good base for our banana. Let's add a little bit more yellow, I think. Let's do this side yellow because our other yellow is starting to get stringy and gross. I think I'm going to add a little bit of reds in there. So same thing, my banana's looking kind of, we have a little bit of reds on the top because our yellows and our reds mixed a bit, but for the most part, it's looking very cool in its color. So what I'm actually going to do, and it's more prominent in this one, I'm actually going to start to add reds in between, but really kind of lightly, really sparsely, not too crazy. Kind of along that line. And then I'm going to go over it with the yellow really quick while it's still wet and kind of mix those colors. And I know it kind of looks funny now, but we're going to go over top of it with yellow again. And then when we do that, it's the red tones are going to kind of show underneath. And we're going to get a really cool look. There you go. So we're going to actually let that dry for a bit. I know it looks funny now, but bear with me. Have trust. And again, it's introducing those warms and those cools, and it's going to make a lot more sense and more interesting piece down the line. Now, I don't have that orange, so I'm actually going to take my paintbrush here, and I'm going to start to mix what I need here. So let's mix these two together, actually. And try to match the tone that I have in my reference here. Let's see. That's looking pretty orangey to me. What do you think? Can you see that? Yeah. All right, I'm going to put this paintbrush off to the side. I think that's pretty good. And then I'm going to grab another Q-tip for that orange. And again, same thing. I'm going to do the base first and foremost and then go over. I'm going to scroll down the comments down. It looks so cool. I'm glad you like it. All right, so now we're starting to get that nice orange color. That was really like how that mixed in together. It's a perfect orange color. I think when I initially did it, it kind of came out a little bit darker than I wanted, but this is a really nice one. Okay, I want to make sure I get it all covered though. So again, we're just going to fill out as much space as we can, because then we're going to start to actually layer. So in my reference, it's actually showing a bit of shadows. So I'm going to mix where those shadows are coming into play. And the shadows are coming from the banana. Ooh, that one was really big there. That's okay, we'll go over it again. Like so. I'm just kind of blocking in where those shadows are going to go, because again, we can finesse this afterwards. And then they're going to start to kind of go around like that. But again, the orange is kind of suffering from the same problem, where we have so much of a similar color to it that it kind of starts to look muted, and it doesn't look like it's a 3D object. Not yet, at least. We're going to kind of work on that. So let's get those shadows back. My blue's starting to look a little bit weird too. So let's do a new blue one here. All right, so let's get the shadows going in place here. And again, same thing. I'm not just going to do all blue for the shadows. I'm going to kind of mix it up a bit. I'm going to add multiple tones. There we go. And this is our floor plane. Awesome. Okay, so let's block that in as much as I can here. All right, and then keep going. We're really starting to get that to come together. Okay, so that'll be a good base coat for now. Let's jump back to our banana as we talked about. I might need some more yellow though, because we used it up for our orange. Let's go back here. All right. So let's put this off to the side. Okay. So now I'm gonna, even though that we have that red base in place, now I'm gonna go over top of it with that yellow again. And what's going to happen is it's going to pick up that red underneath, and you're going to really start to feel that three-dimensionality. And this is a great way to make sure that your paintings aren't going to feel flat, right? This is really prominent in not just this type of painting where there's pointillism, but also when you're doing any type of painting, what we call an underpainting, which is where we paint something first in the bottom, and it's usually going to be like a big stroke, like a, say like a big blue background or a big red background, and then we go over top of it, and the painting on top is going to start to kind of pick up what's underneath there. And as you can see now, that red is not as prominent, but it still has that kind of shade of red that's kind of coming in, which is really nice. And so now my banana doesn't feel like it's just kind of one color. It's got all these mixtures. And this is very true with in real life as well. You know, things are not just one color. I think for the orange too, I'm going to actually start to add a little bit of yellow. But again, I'm going to quickly go over that with orange. I'm going to mix that in there. I want a little bit lighter. And again, the orange is looking like it's a lot of the same color. So I'm going to start to mix the blues on that bottom. Let's grab our orange again. And again, if it doesn't quite look right away, that's okay. We can start to kind of go over top of it. And as you can see with that shadow, when we added a little bit of blue, it's really starting to get that pop now. So let's add a little bit up top here as well. Let's go over that in orange again. All right. So I think we got the base of it. I can, again, keep going over it as many times as I want and keep working on it. But I think you guys are getting the general point that I'm trying to get across is when we start to layer like this, we can really start to get that separation of the forms in between here, right? And again, I'm just starting to mix that. There you go. That might have come off too strong, so I might dial it back a bit. I might add some more orange in there. Now my orange is getting all funky. Let's grab it. Let's grab another Q-tip. This will happen. The Q-tip can only take so much. All right. There you go. But again, because we added so much green and so much blues and stuff, when we start to look at it, it really starts to kind of pop in. Let's add a little bit more. I'm having fun, so it's hard to put it down. So let's add just kind of a quick little background. I mentioned before that we're going to add a little bit of colors in between for the shadow. So let's do that now quickly. Add a little bit of yellow, and then that yellow mixed with that blue is going to start to kind of appear green. And I'm just adding this in, and as you can see, if it's too much yellow for those shadows, we're going to dial it back with that blue again. Let's go back. We'll dial it back with the blue. We really start to, and now we're starting to get depth with that. All right, cool. Okay, let's do a quick background really quickly. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do a bunch of yellow dots here. And again, same thing, even though I'm gonna do the background with yellow, it's gonna kind of look funny when it's up against that banana because it's the same color. So I'm going to separate it with a darker color. Have it kind of trail here. All right. I'm going as fast as I can here. Same thing with the shadows here. We can kind of have it, I kind of have it trailing off in my other one. So we can kind of do that as well. Oh, we forgot to add that banana shadow. There we go. Let's quickly add it now. Something like that. It's a little bit more faint. Something like that. You can mess with it on your own time, but let's see. Okay, so we're starting to get that yellow. It's starting to kind of go. So I'm going to kind of put it really close to my edges here. And then I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to use a bit of blues for that separation, because the blues are going to kind of communicate with those yellows. There you go. And now we're really starting to get that separation of the yellow from the banana from the background yellow. And again, what I'm going to do when I go over this again, I'm going to go over top of that yellow. Again, these colors right here, they're starting to match quite a bit, so I'm going to separate that once I... Same thing from the background as well. So this not the background, the shadows here. So I really want to make sure that this is separated and they're not starting to blend in together. But we're still using the DNA, and we're still using the darker tones from that underpainting and going over top. There you go. So we're just doing it where it needs to be. Something like that. I think what I'm going to do, I think I'm going to put a lighter line for that banana where that edge is coming in, and then do it darker for the background. There you go. Now you really get that sense of that separation in between them, and that's what I was going for. That's what I want. And again, I'm just going to keep going over top of it. But I still want to maintain that separation. coming through. All right. So again, I could keep doing this for a super long time and keep working at it and keep applying those layers. And again, the longer that you do it, it's going to come out, because you're going to have so many different marks and so many different colors that are going to pop out, which is going to be really great to actually see the final result when you do that. But yeah, so let's just talk about some of the stuff we did. So with pointillism, when we take two colors that are, say, like a red and a yellow, and they're kind of put next together, what happens is they start to kind of form an orange. And this is kind of what Seurat was getting at when he was doing these paintings like this one here, even though these start to look solid. And this is a big piece, it's huge. But when you start to look at kind of the smaller little details, you start to pick up on those little tiny specks of color and things that, you know, I even start to see warm tones in here. I didn't mention it, but there's, you know, there's the yellows, and then, which is a warmer tone, and then you start to have your cools where you have your blues and greens, and they really start to mesh together to make one solid color and something like this. So I encourage you guys to try this at home, and hopefully you're following along with the lesson. This is a lot of fun, especially with younger children as well, to use Q-tips and dab with it. If you're using a paintbrush like that, you're going to damage your brush, so I highly recommend using Q-tips. And I'm glad you enjoyed the lesson. Thank you so much, guys, and until next time, I'll see you later.